Kristen's new vampire movie sounds like the anti-Twilight we need in 2024. Kristen Stewart has been cast as the lead character in a new vampire movie, which already sounds like the perfect and needed anti-Twilight. Kristen Stewart returns to the vampire genre with Flesh of the Gods. Flesh of the Gods sets a new tone with seductive and intriguing vampires, contrasting the laughable Twilight vampires. The movie's release may benefit from comparisons to Twilight, offering Stewart a chance to shine in a new light. Kristen Stewart is going back to the vampire genre with a new movie that sounds like the perfect anti-Twilight needed in 2024. Kristen Stewart's acting career began in the early 2000s, and the role that got her wide recognition was Sarah Altman in David Fincher's Panic Room, alongside Jodie Foster. After appearing in movies like Zathura, A Space Adventure, The Messengers, Into the Wild, and Jumper, Stewart's big break arrived in 2008 when she was cast as Bella Swan in the film adaptation of Stephen E. Meyer's debut novel Twilight. Stewart played mortal teenager Bella Swan, who, after moving to Forks, Washington, with her father, comes across vampire Edward Cullen, Robert Pattinson, whom she falls in love with. The Twilight phenomenon, which started with the publishing of the first novel, only grew when the books were adapted to the big screen, and Stewart played Bella in all the films in the Twilight Saga. Now, Stewart is returning to the vampire genre over a decade after the release of the Twilight Saga, Breaking Dawn, Part 2, in a movie that sounds like the opposite of Twilight. Kristen Stewart's Flesh of the Gods sounds like everything Twilight wasn't. Twilight failed as a vampire story. Flesh of the Gods will star Kristen Stewart and Oscar Isaac and will take the audience to 1980s Los Angeles to meet married couple Raoul Isaac and Alex Stewart. The Twilight Saga has been Kristen Stewart's only visit to the vampire genre, though she has made a couple of horror movies through the years, such as The Messengers and Underwater. Stewart's next project has now been announced, and it's a vampire movie titled Flesh of the Gods. Written by Andrew Kevin Walker, SS7N, and directed by Panos Cosmatos, Mandy, Flesh of the Gods will star Kristen Stewart and Oscar Isaac and will take the audience to 1980s Los Angeles to meet married couple Raoul, Isaac, and Alex Stewart. Raoul and Alex find themselves immersed in a glamorous but surreal world of hedonism, thrills, and violence. Every evening, Raoul and Alex descend from their luxury skyscraper condo to venture into the electric nighttime realm of the city. One night, they come across a mysterious and enigmatic figure known as Nameless and her hard-partying group, and Raoul and Alex find themselves immersed in a glamorous but surreal world of hedonism, thrills, and violence. Although brief for now, the plot details of Flesh of the Gods already show how different it is to Twilight and all the things Meyer's story failed to be. That saga works better as a fantasy romance series of movies rather than a vampire saga. While the story does center on vampires, and these serve as both allies and enemies throughout the entire saga, Meyer's vision of vampires was too different from the traditional image of these. Meyer's vampires don't die under sunlight, but their skin will sparkle like diamonds. Their eyes change color depending on what they feed on, humans or animals, and they all have a special power. This made Twilight's vampires laughable, but Flesh of the Gods seems to be leaning more toward the seductive and intriguing type of vampires. 2024 needs an anti-Twilight movie, which makes Kristen Stewart's casting perfect. 2024 is seeing a resurgence of vampire movies. Vampires are currently going through a resurgence in film, though not all of them have succeeded with critics and viewers. Vampires are some of the most popular and beloved classic monsters, and they have been the inspiration for countless TV shows and movies. Vampires are currently going through a resurgence in film, though not all of them have succeeded with critics and viewers. Movies like Renfield, The Last Voyage of the Demeter, Abigail, and Robert Eggers' Nosferatu have re-sparked interest in vampire movies, which is much needed after Twilight's not-so-positive impact on the audience. Despite its success, Twilight left a mark on the vampire genre that has been endlessly mocked, so it's about time there was an anti-Twilight movie, which is even more perfect with Stewart on board. It's unclear if Flesh of the Gods will see Stewart as a mortal who turns into a vampire, which is what happened to Bella in the Twilight Saga, or if she will already be a vampire at the beginning of the movie, but having her as one of the main characters can finally shake off Twilight from her and the audience's memory of her career. The Twilight comparisons will only make Flesh of the Gods look better. Twilight's failures can benefit Flesh of the Gods. Twilight doesn't have the best reputation in the vampire genre due to the changes made to these monsters, which made them laughable. With Kristen Stewart as one of its main characters, Flesh of the Gods will inevitably be compared to Twilight, and that can be greatly beneficial to the former. As mentioned above, Twilight doesn't have the best reputation in the vampire genre due to the changes made to these monsters, which made them laughable characters that weren't intimidating nor seductive, no matter how hard they tried to be the latter. Twilight also leaned more toward romance than horror or suspense, while Flesh of the Gods is described as a thriller. Stewart's performance will also be compared to her role as Bella, which isn't the best in her career. Flesh of the Gods will surely have a better story, structure, and character development than the Twilight Saga, allowing Kristen Stewart to truly shine in the vampire genre. Flesh of the Gods is on its way to being what Twilight wished it was but couldn't be, even if it isn't well received by critics.